Hello and welcome to the 29th video in the PHP e-commerce series. This is Curtis with Free Skills. In this video we're going to create our update cart function, and the purpose of this is going to be to be able to take items out of our shopping cart and add additional items to the shopping cart. So we're going to get started here, and what I want to do is I want to add in the quantity field here, I want to add a minus button and a plus button that just allows us to easily click plus or minus to increase the quantities of each one of these. So to get started, we're going to work in 3 files today, I believe. The first file that we're going to need doesn't exist yet, so let's go ahead and create that. So we're going to go into admin, in our parsers file here we're going to create one more parser, and we're going to new file there. I'm going to call this update underscore cart.php. Alright, and we'll go ahead and open our footer.php. So that was in the includes footer, and we're going to work in the cart.php. So the first thing that we want to do is just go ahead and build up our update cart function, and it's pretty small. So let's go ahead and jump to the footer. I'm going to add this in a footer here, and just right here above the add to cart function, we're going to go ahead and add a new function, and we'll just call that update underscore cart. Okay, and the update cart function is going to take 3 parameters. The first is going to be mode or type, but I'm going to call it mode. The second is going to be edit ID, and that will be the ID of the product that we are editing, and then the edit size. Okay, we need to know those 3 things for this function to work. And so let's just get started here. We're just going to say var data, okay, and that is going to be equal to an object, and we're just going to say mode, and that will be equal to mode, and then we're going to say edit ID, that will be edit ID, and lastly we're going to say edit size, and that will be edit size. Okay, so once we have that, we can do our Ajax call. So say jQuery.ajax. Oops. Go ahead and get our semicolon there. And inside of this, we're just going to pass the URL. And the URL for this is going to be / and then the root directory. So in my case, it's tutorial. And then / admin / parsers / update cart, and you need to spell this correctly, update cart.php. That's this update cart file we created that we haven't done anything with yet. And the next thing that we're going to do, we'll set our method to post. We'll pass in data, and that's the data object that we created here. We're just going to pass it in there. And then for success, we're going to do an anonymous function. Okay, and for error, we will do an anonymous function as well. And for error, we can just go ahead and give it an alert. I'm just going to put something went wrong, and you guys can do whatever message you would like to say there. Probably something better than I've done, it would be wise for a live site, but you know, something with a little more descriptive. But that's all I'm going to put there. And then all we need to do on success here is reload the page. So that was just a location dot reload. Okay, and that's it. So that is the update cart function that goes in our footer. That's all we need. So pretty small function there. But we need to create those buttons to call the function. So let's go ahead and jump over to cart.php, and let's go down to where our quantity here, this field here with this quantity. And what I want to do is just give us some room here to work. So I'm going to leave a space there, and then there we go. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say button, and we're going to give this button a class equal to button, and then we'll give it button XS for extra small, and button default just to make it a gray button. Okay. Alright, and this button is going to just be, the first one is just going to be a minus. Okay, and we're going to give it an on-click event, so add an on-click attribute there. And what we're going to do is run the update cart. Okay, now keep in mind that this update cart gets three parameters. So for the first parameter, I'm going to pass it a string, and we're just going to say remove 1. You guys can call it whatever you want. I'm going to call it remove 1. And then for the second parameter, I'm going to go ahead and put some PHP in here, so echo out some PHP for this parameter, and that is just going to be product ID. So that'll give us our edit ID there. And for the third parameter, I'm going to also echo out, but this is going to be item size. Alright, make sure we close those PHP tags. Okay, so we're going to have our mode will be remove 1, and then our edit ID will come from the product ID, and our size will come from the item size here. And we already have access to all of these elements of these arrays. We don't need to do any kind of PHP to grab those, they're already there. Alright, so what I'm going to do here is just copy this whole line, and I'm going to paste it in here, because the plus is very similar. We only need to change a few things. For one, inside of our actual button, we need to add a plus right there. And we also need to change this mode from remove 1 to add 1. Okay, that's just what I'm calling them. You can call them anything you want, just remember what you call them. Okay, the next thing that I want to do is, actually we only want this plus button to exist if there are more available. So what we're going to do is right here, go ahead and open PHP, and we'll say we'll just give it an if statement. Okay, and the if, give it a colon, we'll use this syntax here, and then we're going to indent that some. Okay, and then what we'll do is right here we'll say open up PHP and we'll say end if. Alright, so what are we going to put in here? Well, for this if statement, we're going to check if item quantity is less than available. Alright, because we only want to display this plus button if the quantity is less than however many are available. If it's more or equal, well, it never should be more, but if it's equal to that, then what do we want to do? Well, instead of doing an end if here, what we can actually do is just say else. Oops. And we'll change that semicolon to a colon, and then we'll just go down couple lines here, and we'll say, then we will do our end if. So we have an if and an else there, and what we're going to do here is we'll just put a span tag and we'll give that a class equal to text danger. Okay, and then what we're going to do is just say max. We can say max available or max avail or max reached, something like that. Alright, so let's go now and see what that looks like. So I'm going to refresh the page here, and we can see that I have minuses and pluses here on either side of the button, except for here on the long skirt. We have a small long skirt, and let's just take a look at that and see how many are available. So if I go to skirts here and we look at long skirt, let's just look at, yep, there's 2 available. So in our cart, instead of giving us a plus button here, it says that we're getting 2 and maximum is reached there, and I don't really like that reached, so I'm just going to say max. Refresh. Yeah, that looks better. So that way the button's gone, but it says max. Yeah, so that looks good. Well, it doesn't look good. You guys probably make yours look way better than mine, but for what I'm doing, this is going to work just fine. Alright. So the next thing that we have to do is actually run this. If I just hit minus now, it refreshes the page, but it doesn't do anything, and that's just because our parser's not running. But let's go ahead and inspect the element here. And I'm going to go to network, and I'm going to hit preserve log, and let's click on one of these, and we can check this because now we have this update cart PHP in our network for XHR. So click that, and we can see that we got a 200, which means our URL must be correct in our AJAX call. And if we go down, we just want to see, here's our form data that's being posted. We see mode is remove 1, edit ID is 16, and the size was 1T. So that all looks really good. Let's go ahead and close out that. And the next thing we need to do is just go ahead and do our update cart parser file now. So let's go back to our code, and in the update cart, let's just go ahead and open PHP, and we'll skip down a few lines and close PHP. Alright, the first thing that we need to do is require in our init file. So we'll just say require once, and we'll do $_server document _root. Okay, and we're going to concatenate onto that a string, and we'll put the /, then the root of your folder, /core /init.php. Alright. The next thing that we want to do is we want to go ahead and grab our posted data and sanitize it. So the first one was mode, and that equals sanitize. We'll run it through the sanitize function, and then $_post mode. Okay. And then for the next one, we got edit size, sanitize it, $_post edit size, and the next one we have is edit ID. We'll sanitize that. Okay. And then what we're going to do is go ahead and set up our cart queue. So we'll say cart queue is equal to db query, and we'll say select all from cart where ID equals cart ID. We have access to that from our init.php file that we created, and then result will equal my SQLi fetch associative array, and we'll pass in the cart queue, and then our items then will be equal to we're going to go ahead and do the JSON decode, and that will get two parameters. The first parameter is what we're decoding, and the second parameter will be true. Okay, so for the first parameter here, we're going to pass it in result and then items from the database there. So now we have items, and then we're going to go ahead and set up updated items. We're going to set that equal to an empty array. Okay. The next thing that we need to do for setting up our cookies is we need to set the domain. Okay, and we'll do a ternary operator here. Okay, and what we're going to check against is if $_server of HTTP host, okay, if that is equal to localhost, then we are going to use a period, and then we'll concatenate onto that $_server HTTP host. I'm sorry, in this logic it's a little wrong. If it is not equal to localhost, we will want to do the period plus the HTTP host. Otherwise, we're going to set this to false. Alright, double check. Yep, looks good. So that's our domain. So now we just need to check against our two modes. So we'll do an if statement here, and we're going to say if mode is equal to remove one. Remember, that's one of the modes. Okay, then we're going to do something, and then I'll also do, we'll just go ahead and set this up, if mode is equal to add one. So we get the skeletons of those if statements set up. Okay, so these are going to be similar, and actually we'll copy and paste this. We'll change this. So sorry if you already typed that. So here in the if statement for the remove one, we're just going to do a for each. Okay, and with the for each, we're going to say for each items as item. Okay, so for each item as items, and we're going to do a check, and we're going to say if. Okay, so if item ID is equal to edit ID, okay, if that's true, and item size is equal to edit size, then we want to do something, and that's going to be item quantity equals item quantity -1. Okay, so then what we can do is we can say, we can do another if statement. After that if statement, we can say if item quantity is greater than 0, then we want to add to the updated items the item. So it's going to loop through each item in our cart. If it's more than 0, which every item in our cart will be, it'll add it back to this updated items. And additionally, if the item ID is equal to the edit ID and the size, then it will minus 1 from that and then add that to this updated items. Now what happens if we have 1 and we minus 1? Now it's going to be equal to 0, so it will not add that item back to the updated items. So we'll have access to this updated items, and that is what we will JSON encode and stuff back into the database. Okay? So what we can do now is right here, this whole if statement, we're going to copy this whole thing because it's going to be exactly the same thing pretty much for the add one mode. Okay? So we'll just say add one. And the add one, what it's going to do is it's just going to check if the item ID equals the edit ID and the size equals the size. If it does, then we're going to not minus 1 but plus 1, and this will always be greater than 0. So we can get rid of this if statement right here. Okay, and we can just set the updated items. We can add that item to the updated items array. Okay, so that's all we need to do for the add one. So now we have the and let me just give it a line of space so it's easy to read. We have this if statement for one mode, and then we have this if statement for the other mode. Okay, so then now that we, in either case, we have this updated items. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to do something with that. So we'll just run a check really quick to make sure that the cart's not empty. So we'll say if not empty, updated items. Okay, so if it's not empty, then what we want to do is we're going to do JSON encode, or actually we'll say JSON updated is equal to JSON encode, and we will pass that the updated items array. All right. Let me add a D to this. All right. So then what we can do is update the query, or update the database. So we're just going to do db query, and for the query we'll say update cart, update cart set set items equal to updated set that equal to JSON updated. Okay, and then we can't forget our where, otherwise we'll do that will update every cart item, and that's bad news. So we're going to say where ID is equal to cart ID, and then we can just do our session success flash is equal to your shopping cart has been updated. Okay, now that's if it's not empty, but what happens if it is empty? if the shopping cart's empty, there's really no reason to keep it in the database, and we don't really need to keep the cookie, or we don't want to keep the cookie for sure. So it's up to you if you want to keep the cart in the database. That might be useful information later to find out what people are kind of pairing together in your shopping cart. So it could be good analytics or statistics later to keep your items in your shopping cart even if people don't buy. That's going to be up to you guys, but for me, I'm going to go ahead and clean up the database and just get rid of it. And to do that, we just need to do a DB query, and we're going to say delete from cart where ID is equal to cart ID. So that will get rid of the row in the database, okay? And then we just need to get rid of our cookie. So to do that, we'll just do set cookie, and to set the cookie, we're going to set cart cookie. That's our cookie name, and that's coming from the config file. And then we're going to set that to an empty value, and we're going to expire that at 1 second, which has already happened, so it's going to expire immediately. We'll set the path to root, and we're going to say for the domain, we're going to use our domain variable, and then for security, we're going to say false, and that's it. That will basically destroy our cookie, but first it will then delete that row from the database and then set the cookie. Alright, so that's it. That's our parser file. Pretty short and simple. Save that. Yep, that is our entire parser file. So now if I refresh the page, I should be able to add so here's the whole problem. I have a typo. So I'm checking here if not empty update items without the D, and right here I have the updated items with the D. That's the problem. So let's go ahead and refresh the page now, and let's go buy something here. Actually, I need to get rid of my cookie so that everything works correctly. Let's refresh. If I go to cart, it should say, okay, shopping cart's empty. So now let's go ahead and buy a skirt. We'll buy one of those. Let's also just check this and buy another one, but let's buy a medium and not a small. And then let's buy a girl's dress. Alright, let's go to our cart now. So we have the long skirt, we have a small and a medium. If I plus this, alright, that we get the message here, your shopping cart has been updated. This hits the maximum amount available, so it gets rid of the button. We can keep going with the medium long skirt. Okay, 6 was the maximum there. And then the princess dress, 4 is the max there. So then if I subtract these back down, okay, and if before I get rid of this, let's look at our database, browse. So we have one item left in the database, ID of 4. If I take that last one away here, okay, it says your shopping cart's empty, and the cookie now is gone, and hopefully the database item is gone as well, if that's what you chose to do. Alright, so it does get rid of the cookie, it gets rid of the row in the database, and the updating functions are working correctly. So that's it for this video. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you have, please comment, like, and subscribe. In the next video, we're going to get started with our checkout form, and what we're going to do is a 2-step form where they click checkout, and then it will ask their shipping address, and then they'll hit next, and it'll take them to a separate form that will ask their credit card details, and we'll get all that set up, and working. We won't actually process the credit card in the very next video. We'll just be doing the logic for the form, and then the following video we'll be getting our merchant account set up and getting some dependencies installed, and we will work on getting our libraries and everything ready to go, and then we will do another video after that. They'll be pretty short, where we will actually accept the payment and go ahead and process the credit card, and we'll see the money go into our merchant account. Alright, well, I hope you've enjoyed this, and have a great night.